Good morning. It is Thursday. Clearly, it's getting to be about haircut time. Amo, are you back from your hip replacement? So it's December 15th. It is almost time for Christmas. We are rolling into that holiday season. We got about 2 weeks, I guess less than that. And it's Christmas time. So this can be a very, very stressful time for people, a lot going on. It can be difficult to deal with family. It can be difficult to deal with food and with health, alcohol. It's easy to indulge in things that we normally wouldn't, which is fine. It's okay to indulge a little bit and have a good time. But how do you manage through these times? Well, one of the things that happens, especially to achievers, is they want to have a feeling of certainty. They just want to have this feeling of that they're under control. And the problem is we try to get that feeling by controlling events. We try to get that feeling by managing things that are outside of us. And the reality is we can never control events. You just can't. You can to a point and you can try, but it really is kind of an act of frustration. What you can do is you can always control your response to these events. And think about it. You'll set yourself up to feel certainty. So you say, well, if this happens, and this happens, and this happens, then I'll feel certain. Well, how do you know? How is it that you finally do, in fact, feel certain? Well, you do it for yourself. You feel certain because you give yourself that feeling of certainty. It isn't the events, because you could change what events will make you feel certain. You could say, I'm going to feel certain whether or not those events happen. You've just set up some sort of arbitrary rule that when these events happen, then I'm going to feel certain because you've chosen to make that the outcome. So you can choose to feel certain anytime you want. And you do that using your triad. And we've talked about our triad a lot in times past. We haven't talked about it for a little while. But the triad, which is a triangle, are the three things that decide how we feel about everything. And it's made up of three things. The bottom is physiology. Nothing changes more about how you feel than your physiology. A radical change in physiology changes how you feel. And if you think about it, athletes know this, and we know this with regards to our kids. If our kids are like, oh, I'm tired, we say, well, get up and go do something. So if you stand as though you were standing and feeling certain, you'll start to feel certain. One of the other legs is language. That is, what is the language that you're using? When these things arbitrarily happen so that you decide to feel certain, the language that you're using in your head is, okay, now I feel certain about this, or something to that effect. And then the third leg is focus/belief. And what that means is, what are you focusing on? And when those things happen so that you decide to feel certain, what you're focusing on is what happened that went right. So the reality is we can always put ourselves in a physiology of certainty. We can always put ourselves in a language of certainty. That is, I got this, or I'm going to be able to respond to this appropriately, or I can always control myself, whatever the language is that works for you. And we can always focus on what's going right. And you've heard me say a lot of times, start with gratitude. Whenever you start with gratitude, then it takes away fear, which is really what all of us achievers are suffering from when we're trying to control everything. When we're trying to control events, what we're really doing is we're saying we're fearful of being out of control, but we don't call it fear, we call it stress. Achievers call it stress. Stress is just another word for fear. I'm afraid that this is not going to go right. I'm afraid that this is not going to go right. And at the end of the day, let's face it, if the meal doesn't go right, well, then it doesn't go right. Then that'll be a memorable Christmas. 20 years from now, you look back and go, do you remember when you ruined the ham or the turkey or the prime rib or whatever it is? Yeah, I do. Ha, ha, ha. Can you believe that happened? So as you get ready to go through this holiday, understand that this feeling of certainty, the feeling of calm, the feeling of content, the feeling of gratitude are all feelings that we choose to give ourselves. We set up these arbitrary rules that when this happens, and this happens, I'm going to choose to feel a certain way. The rules don't matter because you can change the rules. So you can decide, I'm going to choose to feel gratitude and certainty and love and connection, whatever it is that you want, growth, courage, whatever those feelings are, you can choose those feelings simply because you're up and taking a breath. That can be your choice. And if you put yourself in this state of certainty as you manage through the holidays, you start out with a state of gratitude and manage yourself through the holidays, you're going to enjoy them a lot better and you're going to have a lot less stress. Because when you come from that place, now, whatever does happen, you're going to be able to respond to it in a much better fashion than if you're stressed. Let's face it, if we're stressed and tense and something doesn't go the way that we hoped, what's your response typically in that situation? Usually it's not a very positive one. But when we're in a mood of gratitude and certainty, excitement, whatever it is that you want, and something doesn't happen the way that it's supposed to, how do you respond then? Typically, your response is something a lot more professional, a lot more acceptable, something that you'll be proud of down the road, as opposed to, oh man, I wish I wouldn't have responded that way. So give yourself the gift. Make it that every day that you wake up, you give yourself the feeling of certainty. You give yourself the feeling of gratitude. Whatever it is that you want, you give yourself those feelings and you say, today I'm going to feel these feelings simply because I'm above ground. And it's going to make the rest of your day that much better. And in fact, it'll completely change the quality of your life. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. We're all in this together. Let's take care of each other.